wanna go where no eyes never seen, no ears never heard, no mind can imagine. Paradise, no more tests, no more tears, no more trials. Paradise, just to hold my mother in my arms. Paradise, where I'll gaze into my children's eyes. Paradise, gardens beneath where rivers will flow. Paradise, where nothing will hurt anymore. Won't hurt anymore.
Hey, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Hey, welcome, salam.
Hold on. Okay. Wait. No, maybe so. Okay, there we go. What am I doing wrong? I don't know. Welcome back, ladies, to another episode of Sunday Morning Coffee. How's everyone?
Alhamdulillah. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Very good. How was your week?
Busy. Right. Can't complain too much.
Anything special?
Definitely not on my end.
Yeah, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Just hectic and busy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be back. I just want to thank you guys for holding it down in my absence last week. I really
You were missed.
Yes, exactly. You know how they say your presence was missed. So yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you guys. So it's good to be back. Without further ado, let's jump right in, shall we? Oh, before we forget, Naima is not here today, and she is missed as well.
Yeah.
We will be back this week, but we definitely are missing her. So Naima, we will see you soon, inshallah. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Again, welcome to another episode of Sunday Morning Coffee with Friends. We are very, very, very excited to be here today. School year is almost over for those of us who are in the tri-state area. So I am like waiting with bated breath for them to say that this is the last day of school and we are done. Anywho, without further ado, I'm sure anyone with kids can relate because you're like, okay, when is school going to be over? When are these kids going to be able to stay home? Wa alaikum salam, everyone that's tuning in and joining us live. Let us know where you're watching from too. That's what I was going to say.
That's a good idea.
Comment. Where are you watching from? If you're watching from Facebook, just type in, I'm watching from Facebook. YouTube, type in YouTube, right? We want to know how we're doing, right? Because we definitely have more subscribers on YouTube and our YouTube family is beginning to grow. So from there after that. Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, Khalil, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so our mugs are still available to purchase on our sites. Here they are. $25 plus shipping. So be sure to go over to wholeheartedmuslim.com/shop and you will see our mugs there available to purchase. We still have some left, so please go out and get your mugs today. And also shout out to our YouTube viewers. Hey, YouTube viewers.
Hey, YouTube.
While you're there, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel so that everyone can be able to see all of our latest episodes, all our latest videos from Sunday Morning Coffee. And also look for us at Muslim Wholehearted Initiative. Also, we're looking for women-owned businesses for a project we're working on in collaboration with Masjid al-Taqwa here in Brooklyn, New York, and Aqila's Voices this summer. So if you're a woman and you own a business, please email us at muslimwholeheartedinitiative@gmail.com. Be on the lookout for more in-person events as the COVID restrictions are lifted. So again, please email us if you are interested and if you are a Muslim woman business owner. I think you can be very excited about an upcoming project that we have that we're working on right now. So please reach out to us if that applies to you. Also, Yesterday was the final day of MWI's special needs mini course facilitated by our very own Kwesi Rakib. And alhamdulillah, it was a huge success. So we want to thank everyone who signed up, everyone who joined and participated in her mini course. We got a lot of positive feedback about it. So again, thank you everyone who participated and signed up. And speaking of courses and workshops, our next workshop is coming up very soon. Finding Serenity, a way through for divorced and separated Muslims. It's a single weekend workshop. It's going to be July 10th to 11th. And that's going to be facilitated by our very own Zainab Abdul-Rahim. And please make sure you register for her workshop at wholeheartedmuslim.com/finding serenity. So please go and sign up for that. Zainab, did you just want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to be facilitating this workshop for the third time. Alhamdulillah. We have a lot of treats in store for our attendees and those that register. Again, this is a workshop that's very close to my heart. Divorce is difficult. It is a challenge, but there is so much life in it, going through it, getting through it, and surviving and thriving, right? We don't just want to survive divorce. We want to thrive after it, right? And we want to take the lessons that we've learned to move forward in our lives. So definitely, if you have taken the course and you've benefited, if you haven't taken the course and you've heard about the good things, please go ahead and register. This is a course that is for both men and women, those who are healing through divorce. And we do have a lot in store for you guys. And in our next upcoming shows, you will see a couple of tidbits that we have in store for you. So I'm really excited. I'm super, super excited to kick off our summer with this workshop. So alhamdulillah.
All right. And also a $50 donation will get you into one of our workshops, any one workshop of your choice for free. So if you donate $50, you get to attend one of our upcoming workshops of your choice for free. All right. And also go to wholeheartedmuslim.com/donation for more information about that. And again, $50 donation, attend upcoming workshop for free. That's an excellent deal. So please take advantage of that. And while you're there, please don't forget to sign up for our monthly newsletter. We do have a monthly newsletter. It's available there. You will see also the link for that on our webpage as well, wholeheartedmuslim.com. So be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter while you are also registering for our upcoming workshop.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into our topic for today. And it's an interesting one. So the topic is, you have wife written all over you. Stop entertaining men who can't read. And I hope that caught your attention because it caught mine. You know, it's catchy, it's humorous, but there's always so much wisdom in things that, you know, on the surface seem humorous. So this is really what we're going to dive into today.
Yes, I'm super excited for this topic. I think it is an important topic for many, many reasons. And I think oftentimes as women, we are not in touch with who we are, Muslim women, number one. Okay. And also we're not aware of ourselves. And inshallah, we're going to talk a lot about that, right? And I always say this in my private life, that preserving our honor is our responsibility. Don't look for anyone else to do that for you, right? If you put yourself in a compromising situation, don't expect someone else to make sure that you are honored in that, right? In a perfect world, people would, but this is not a perfect world. So oftentimes people don't. Would you ladies agree?
I agree.
Oh, definitely.
So just off, why is preserving our honor as women? So, and before I start, actually, I want to say this is not an attack or an indictment of Muslim women, right? This is for us to gently pull one another's coattail, remind us of good, and to kind of hold us accountable, right, to the standard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for us. And don't think that men are off the hook because we started with women. We do plan on having a part 2 just for the brothers. So we will be addressing the brothers as well. So Getting back to the conversation, why is preserving our honor so important? Why do you think it's important, Kalila?
For
Women.
a few reasons. You can find yourself in all kinds of trouble if you're not careful, for one thing. And again, as you said earlier, holding ourselves to the standards that's set by Allah's messenger, that's important. We have to always be mindful of that. No matter what we're doing or where we are, whether we're in a workplace, whether we're just out and about running our daily errands as we women do, we always have to be mindful of that, how we carry ourselves, how we present ourselves out to society, and keep that in the front of our minds and conduct ourselves appropriately with whoever we come in contact with. Remember, especially us as women, we really are the face of Islam. Whether we want to be or not, we are the first line here. Because for obvious reasons, because of how we dress. So we are the representation of Islam wherever we outside our house. That's an automatic what people are going to see, and this is a takeaway they're going to have. So, especially as women, it's important for us to make sure we conduct ourselves appropriately and properly, and in the proper manner. Okay, because again, this is it's a form of dawah as well. We are a form of dawah as well when we go out and step outside into the world. So we have to be mindful of that.
Right. Quasia, what about you? Why is it so important for us to do this?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that, Kalila, both of you are saying. I guess I also think looking back, I think, I don't want to give anyone's age on here, but we are definitely not in our teens. Let's just say that.
There you go.
Over the age of 21. But I think looking back on my teen years or even in my early 20s, I can, they say hindsight is 20/20. And a lot of times I think to me, Islam or, the role of a woman or, guard your hayat, all this stuff seemed like so strict. It seemed actually very restrictive on me. Like I saw all the ways that it was restricting me. Can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. But as the older I get, I see the immense wisdom in it, and when I think back to people I may have grew up with, so on and so forth, you do see, and it's sad, and I want to make a differentiation between what's real in society and ideally what we should be doing, because ideally there should be no difference between men and women. But what we see in society is that the effects of a young girl not guarding her modesty, in this society, even if we took Islam out of the equation, but of course more so as Muslim women, we see the effects of that. Unwanted pregnancies, even if it is actually, I'll take a step back because it should never, Audu Billah, anybody watching this ever get to that point. But even the nature of a young girl, we are emotional creatures, and it just puts you in situations that you're not ready for. I just wanted to add that aspect to it. As a young girl looking back, I thought it was very restrictive, but now I see the wisdom in it because it shuts things down before it even gets started, so that's really my 2 cents on it. It's not restrictive. It actually is a safeguard. Yeah.
It's funny, as you were saying that, the first thing that came to mind is that, this is a hadith of Rasulullah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where he says, there are certain things that are sacred, and he mentions honor being from amongst the things that are sacred, someone's honor, and he's addressing people as it relates to someone else's honor, right? But he's also addressing us as it relates to our honor. So for me, this is why that's so important, because it's one of the things that Rasulullah ﷺ said is sacred, right? Preserving our honor is sacred, who we are, right? And this is when, sometimes people go so extreme and they're like, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I don't care what people say. Like we go extreme in that. And in that regard, we do care what people think. We do care what people say. And we should care what people think and say. Because our honor is something that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has told us is sacred. Who we are, our reputation precedes us, right? We know that we don't live in a perfect world. So a woman's honor being disparaged can impact her work relationships, definitely her marital prospects, right? That can be limited in some instances, even eliminated, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to marry her because of what I've heard about her. Her reputation in a negative way precedes her. So it's so important for us to make sure that we are safeguarding that because it's something from Islam, right? And then also we want our honor to be protected in the eyes of the people as well, right? So I think you touched on a lot of good points, both of you. And I wanted to ask another question. As women, right? This is a question that Naima brought up, when we were discussing questions about today's show, and I wanted to ask, as women, we have like this intrinsic femininity, right? We're born with a feminine nature, some more feminine than others. But how do we use our femininity to inadvertently dishonor ourselves? Anybody want to take it?
Well, I guess the first step, because the first step is acknowledging that we have this inherent femininity. I think that's an issue because I think in this society that we live in now, we like to, equality, gender equity, all these terms that are floating around, we like to think hypothetically like that men and women, like there's no difference. This is what so even the fact that you're saying this, that we have this inherent femininity in it, I'm not sure if a lot of people, especially the younger generations, even get that. True. That you as a woman have this inherent femininity about you. You have this natural allure about you because we've just gotten so far away from what makes us different, what makes us unique. So I would say definitely first, at least acknowledging that. Gosh, I always try not to be long-winded, but one, acknowledging that I keep going back to the younger people. I think a lot of times this stuff is weaponized, and it was actually a comedian, Zainab, you posted it yesterday. But when it comes to Islamic knowledge, when it comes to stuff, how is it even worded? So this is a gift that women have, but I think so often the way it's worded in society is like you are like this evil serpent that, when your voice is just so alluring, it's going to lure men in. So you need to just, block your voice like you're Ariel and Little Mermaid or something because everything about you is just so alluring. And that's like really an extreme, and it's not empowering. And it's like the woman did something wrong by inherently being a woman. And, and this, like, honestly, a lot of times when I hear this question, not from us, anyone on this panel, but typically from a man, it does feel very constrictive and restrictive. You did something wrong inherently by just being a feminine woman. So I would say one, to basically be aware that we even have this gift. And two, just like I said, gift is nothing negative. It is something that is something about us as women. But then also, in a conversation we were having the other day, Zainab, all four of us know this gift, know this power that you have, and know when to use it and know when not to use it. I would say.
I think that's a really good point. And that's exactly where I was going to go with it, because I think that a person ignorant of the power that they possess is dangerous, right? You are not aware of the power that you possess as a woman, right? That can be very dangerous for many, and you can put yourself in a lot of compromising situations. So our femininity, there's nothing wrong with it. And yes, oftentimes, unfortunately, in society, and even truthfully amongst people of the Muslims as well, our femininity is weaponized, and that's unfair, and that has nothing to do with the deen. Right? This is oftentimes people putting their cultural twist on things and their limited understanding of Islam. When women would communicate with the Sahaba, during the time of Rasulullah, they would also communicate with Rasulullah directly, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? They were able to interact with him, but the difference is that they were aware of themselves. Right?
Yeah.
We're not utilizing our femininity to be flirtatious. Right? But we're also not being overtly nasty, because I've seen the opposite. I'm talking about this too. Like,
Yes.
if you happen to walk past a group of brothers, giving salam, salamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Like, you're not doing all that, right? But to give salams, not like running past the brothers as if saying salam
Yeah.
is sinful, right? This is
Yeah.
not what it is, right? Or if a brother happens to speak to you, oh, I don't speak to brothers. I'm not saying anything. Oh my God, he said salaam alaikum to me. Oh my God, he's evil. Like, this is extreme.
Very.
Yeah.
This is extreme, and this comes from a very extreme ideology, right?
Yeah.
And a very extreme interpretation of Islam that is based mostly in culture and not in Quran and Sunnah. And this is dangerous. So I think having insight into who we are as women and the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that I have not left a greater fitna for men than women. That doesn't mean that women are intrinsically evil, but we are a trial for men because men desire women. Having that knowledge, how do we show up, right? Because we have a responsibility in that too. It doesn't make us responsible for a man's ill behavior. Absolutely not. But it does make us responsible and accountable for our behavior and having insight into who we are, and also having insight into how the things we do can impact the opposite sex and put us in compromising positions.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to hear your take on it.
No, I agree with what both of you said. Again, being aware of our femininity, and again, knowing when to use it and when not to. There's a time and place for everything.
Right.
And which is what Cassia was saying earlier, and I 100% agree with you guys. And again, speaking of, time and place for everything, when to use it, when not to use it, sometimes there are situations where you do have to kind of play on that a little bit, that feminine side. For example, sometimes, I don't know about you guys, daily interactions, in our daily errands, whether it's a store, supermarket, bank, post office. Sometimes as Muslim, when non-Muslims in particular see a Muslim woman, you can sometimes sense when someone has their guard up, like their prejudices are just coming to their minds and they automatically start to treat you a little differently. You can kind of see it in their body language and the way they're interacting with you. So I find that sometimes a smile and just kind of smiling and saying, how are you? Good morning, will disarm them. And the kind of those walls come down a little bit, and they start saying, oh, okay. They kind of relax a little bit. Sometimes they have certain assumptions when they see you as a Muslim woman, just, be a little more cold towards her, a little more curt sometimes. But sometimes if you smile and a warm good morning or how are you will sometimes disarm them. And they were kind of like, okay, you see their walls coming down and they start to treat you a little more nicer. So I think that's a positive way we can use our femininity in certain situations like that. The warm smile, just sometimes saying good morning or how are you kind of thing, to kind of have a more positive interaction with, the opposite sex. Non-Muslims I'm talking specifically about, in our daily interactions when we go about doing our daily interactions. So just kind of bring that point up.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And, going back to the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that even a smile is charity, right? But how are you smiling? Are you smizing? Right? Are you smiling with your eyes and you're like, hey, assalamu alaikum, good morning, right? And your good morning is like seductive, and you become like the seductress with the guy in the grocery store. It's like, wait, hold on, because our default should be haya, right?
Of course.
The default of the believer is modesty, right? So we're always cognizant of that. Some of us are naturally modest, and some of us, we had to learn modesty, right? I'm a naturally friendly person. I'm a naturally disarming person. People tend to feel comfortable sharing with me. I have people who will walk up to me in a supermarket, niqab and all, right? I dress like this off camera too, obviously. So, people will start a conversation with me in the store, right? So I have to be cognizant of that too. Like, just because I'm a munaqaba doesn't mean that you don't still have to be aware of, my femininity and how I could be placed in, uncomfortable situations. Khalila, you talked about something as it related to dealing with non-Muslim men, and I kind of want to, just ask the question for all of us. Are any of us? So let's give a scenario. We have a non-Muslim man that we work with. Newsflash. Muslim women work. Flash again. Sometimes we have to interact with men. So, you have a man that comes up to you and he's asking about Islam. Like, you can tell that he's clearly interested in Islam, right? How do we handle this situation? Do we give him dawah? Do we direct him, if we're married, to our husbands? Do we direct him to our fathers? Do we direct him to the local masajids? You know, how do we handle situations where there are Muslim men, there are non-Muslim men who are interested in dawah? And how do we discern? All right, because a lot of what we're going to talk about is the ability to discern. How do we discern? And is it even our responsibility to discern between a man who is interested in Islam versus someone who's interested in us? Right?
I think it's a little bit obvious, though. I mean, men are not are really transparent when it comes to that kind of thing. I feel like if they were interested in you, you'd pick up on like the direction the questions are going in and the things he'd be asking about. And he'd be like, what is this conversation really about? You know, I have had men come up, full disclosure, come up to me, like, literally sitting there at the train station, mind my business, you know, and then ask questions about Islam. So this is real. This is a real scenario that you can find yourself in at any given moment if you're out and about. So yeah, I mean, and again, I answered the questions, you know, to the best of my ability and the conversation. Now, in terms of whether or not you take it further and like add no phone number of your dad or your husband or your brother or whoever to further direct them, I think it would depend on their level of interest. If it's just a casual question they just want to know about, then if that means their curiosity was satisfied, and chances are they probably at that moment weren't really interested in knowing anymore. They're probably gonna go about the business. But if they kept probing and seemed like they were asking really deep questions and really wanted to know more, or expressed that they wanted to know more, and they were generally interested in becoming Muslim, I think that's when we would need to take it upon yourself to, okay, in that case, I'm going to direct you to a brother who can probably help you further and answer some of your questions a little further and, you know, get to more into detail for you. Okay. I mean, that's the way I would handle it.
Okay. Quasia, what about you? How would you handle it?
They honestly, like a duplicate. I agree with everything that Kalila said, and this is I've been in similar situations also, but especially when I was working outside of the home and working in the school systems. But I think it's important, like we said, when as if you know, similar to when a brother's giving you salams and you just shut him down. You know, we're also people. So if this non-Muslim man, and this non-Muslim man also doesn't know the etiquettes and things like that. So we also have to know he's not coming in this to be disrespectful, right? So if this non-Muslim man is asking very basic questions, like Kalila said, at the train station, so on and so forth, that's pretty simple, black and white. You'll never see this person again. If it's someone at work, and I've had that also too, I would answer their general questions because for me, I mean, obviously, I also know myself. So he's not going in, you know, the room and shutting the door and asking me these intimate, this might be in the cafeteria for goodness sake, or this might be, you know, so I know myself also. And I will, because I guess, answer these questions. I think, and like we talked about also, as Muslim women, we are the poster board almost for Islam. So the way I even approach this, you know, if I'm shutting him down the moment he asks a question, wow, these Muslims are so uptight. All they care about is themselves. All they, you know, that could literally be the first impression. Just the way I respond to him might be a form of dawah for all I know. So I would say, yes, I do engage in very basic questions. But like Kalila said, definitely, you know, it's a difference between curiosity or versus now the person is really like, interested. And when you notice, well, not necessarily in you, but
number. I got
what'd you say?
So what's your wait, what?
Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, men are really simple creatures, kind of thing. No offense to any men watching, but they're usually pretty transparent about their intentions.
Exactly. You know, exactly. You definitely know, you know, so once it's like past like the basic, simple like things, definitely direct them to a man. And if this is a clear sign, like you got your head in the sand, if they say, no, I'd rather learn from you.
Exactly.
Or, you know, well, why can't you teach me? All right, shut it down. Shut it down. So, yeah.
Right, absolutely, and I would agree with that. I've been in situations, especially. I mean, I've worked from home for like the past 4 years, but I used to go out into the field in my previous position, and you know, I would go into shelters, and some of my clients were men, and I would, you know, and they would have questions, obviously, about Islam, and I would take that as an opportunity to explain Islam, to them, always, directing them to the local masajid. But I would always give the question, are you ready to accept Islam today? Have this in your heart. Like I wouldn't just let it go and be like, all right, go to the masjid, because someone is interested in Islam, right? Male or female. You have to understand that Shaitan is going to be extra busy with you, right? Because he's going to try to talk them out. Why? Because Shaitan hates the fact that we're Muslim. He hates the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the human being vicegerents over the earth, and his jealousy, his arrogance and jealousy. So Shaitan is always busy with the person who was interested in Islam. So when someone comes to you and they're like, "Hey, I'm interested in Islam," for me, my default is to try to have that conversation, right? And I'm gonna put safeguards in place. So, and this is the part of me knowing myself. So I'm not gonna be alone with this man, right? The conversation is going to be out in the open. Also, I'm definitely going to keep it to the topic. Also, and like you guys both mentioned, if I feel and trusting my intuition, if I feel like this guy is just trying to waste my time, then I'm going to bring that out to the surface. Like I'm going to bring it up. Like I'm not going to, kind of play like these Jedi mind tricks. I don't do that. It seems like you're asking me questions because you're interested in me. Okay, let's kind of put that out there. If you're serious about Islam, then we can continue the conversation. Oftentimes, they'll either laugh, they'll deny it, or they'll be like, they'll say it's a little bit of both. Right? Yeah, I'm interested in it, but I'm also curious about Islam as well. Right? So I know for me, like I will try to encourage them to accept Islam. That's for me, because I know that this is our salvation, and that's how I look at it. You're interested in salvation, like real salvation. I don't mean like Jesus salvation. I mean real salvation, right? Where you are connected to your Lord for real. So whatever game you're playing, there's also a part of you that may be serious too, right? So if there is a game being played, so let's try to get past that, and let's see if you're interested in giving and taking and accepting Islam. But then there's some situations where you don't even entertain it at all. So I think it really depends on the scenario. But the default is to make sure, again, we're going to talk a lot about self-awareness. The default is to be self-aware, aware of yourself, right? So if you're attracted to a certain type of man, and this particular type of man that meets your specifications comes to you, you may not be the best person to handle that, right? Because you're attracted to them. Right. So for me, I'm attracted to a particular type of man. If he comes to me, I'm not going to be the one to give him dawah, because I feel like Shaitan would use that. Right. Opportunity for me to compromise myself. Where in other situations, maybe I would. Right. In different circumstances, maybe I would. Go ahead. You had a comment?
Yeah, Zainab, you mentioned an interesting point, because in our community, this is something else that, okay, men are attracted to the opposite sex, so on and so forth, and women just have like this, thing over themselves. Yes, women can be attracted, newsflash, women can be attracted to men also. And I think even this concept is so, seems so far-fetched to some people. So once again, when it comes to the femininity thing, when it comes to this thing, the first thing for some sisters to might even be like, yes, you are Muslim, you're in full Islamic garb, and you can still be attracted to a man who's attractive. Like, can we just know, yes, just from a man-woman standpoint, you're attracted to him. Because we've seen, there's people who are full niqabis who have committed adultery. Like, this is not, because sometimes I think we I guess going back to the Shaitan, we really don't realize how conniving he is. Absolutely. He will find any avenue. And of course, the way we dress, the way we behave is a safeguard, but we're not 100% in safety, even with all these safeguards. And we have to constantly know that, yeah.
And sometimes you'll be tested with that too. Like that happened to me. Even in education, I had a guy, it was during the summer months, because a lot of times in summer we'll get students come and for training to try to they're in education and they're close to graduating, so we'll get the students come in to observe in the classroom, help out, so they can get a little experience under their belt. So and here they sent a student to my classroom to help us out. Instagram model. He was beautiful, mashallah. And
Yeah.
Instagram model. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll let your imagination do the rest.
Wow.
And yeah, he was in my classroom.
Right.
And let me tell you, every last woman in that building suddenly were interested in coming to my classroom.
Right.
People borrowing things from my classroom who never even came to my classroom. Oh, yeah. Do you have a pen? Do you have a marker? Just so they can look at him.
Wow.
It was that serious, and I really had to make sure I was extra professional.
Right.
Right.
Because that was not easy, you know. And mashallah, in his credit, very respectful, very sweet.
Right.
It wasn't, you know, flamboyant. Wasn't, you know, wasn't flirtatious.
Right.
He was very playful with the children. Children really took to him. You know, so I'm not, no disrespect to him. He was not flirtatious or not at all. The complete opposite, which was surprising actually. Beautiful would be a little more, but he really wasn't. SubhanAllah, he really wasn't. Very respectful. Never even tried. Like very, I'll give him credit. You know, but I really had to like, you know, that was definitely a test. You know, you never know when it pop up. You know,
I actually have a question, Kalila, because this is a really good point. You know, how does hijab, right, play into, and I mean hijab two parts, right? Where's my fingers? Okay, there you go. Two. Right? How does hijab play into us preserving our honor, right? We know that this is a command from Allah. And I mean hijab in two parts. I mean our physical hijab and our spiritual hijab, because it's not just about, I've met sisters who, you know, cover, we've all met sisters who cover and have no haya, have no modesty, have been in extremely compromising situations, wa'iyadu billah. But how does our hijab, preserving our hijab and adhering to proper hijab, and maybe one day, actually, I know for sure one day we will be doing a show on proper hijab, right? And what are the parameters of that? Because I think it's an important conversation to have. But how does that play into us not falling into these situations? Khalil, I'll start with you.
I think that by observing and having proper hijab, it works in your favor, definitely.
Right.
I think had I looked another way, perhaps, and no disrespect to anybody who may, you know, be struggling with this, and this is your struggle. We all are, you know, on different levels Islamically. But I do believe if I did dress differently, if I did not wear, you know, a full himar and abaya, jabab, perhaps he may have treated me a little differently. He may have perceived me to be maybe a little more, you know, different, you know, outgoing, I dare say a little more loose. You know, he may have been a little more friendlier. But I think because of how I carried myself and the way I dressed in particular, he kind of sensed the boundaries there and didn't, and I give him credit, I never crossed them. The funny thing, and here's the funny thing, because we did talk. I mean, you're in class with someone, you're going to talk about, you know, I asked them, like, you know, what got him in education, that kind of thing, particularly early childhood education, which, you know, if anyone's in the education field, you know, not too many men, particularly in early childhood education. So, you know, we kind of talked about that, you know, what his next move was, career-wise, all that stuff.
Right.
And he did actually mention that he had a girlfriend who was Muslim. So I don't know if maybe, I almost laughed. I don't know if maybe, so I think his point of telling me that was kind of like telling me he had a familiarity with Islam.
Right.
Because he mentioned, oh, you know, he knew about Ramadan, how he had fasted in the past, you know, he was just kind of trying to show, like, I knew a little about Islam too, and it kind of, just, I don't know, trying to impress me or what. But he did talk about certain things that I could tell, like, he, at some point he must have talked to somebody because he did know a few things.
Oh, wow.
But I think, I mean, obviously he had a girlfriend who was Muslim. I don't know who she is. I never saw her.
Right.
I can't really speak on what she may have looked like. I can kind of surmise what she may have possibly looked like, if that was his girlfriend.
Right.
But I'm going to safe to say she may not have been looked exactly like me in terms of dress.
Okay.
So that, again, because of that, he may have known, okay, clearly this is a more Muslim woman who's a little more maybe a different level than maybe what I'm accustomed to dealing with. So let me, you know, that may have been also what, you know, also may have caused his interactions to be, you know, respectful, and he knew what not to say, how to move, that kind of thing, you know. That may have had something to do with it as well.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is a reminder. It's interesting because I was I don't know if you guys, Clubhouse, I know, but anywho, I was in a discussion room and it was kind of disheartening, but they were saying that why some women said that why they didn't wear hijab, and they were saying because they were judged more harshly. So I guess it's a catch-22.
Mm.
So and these are younger women, which I always go back to because these are the next generation. So if
Mhm.
you see, a group of girls and maybe they're out, laughing or actually maybe even doing something astaghfirullah, maybe a little bit un-Islamic, a mixed company. If they don't have on hijab, it's not a big deal or they're just whatever. But if they have on hijab, it's like, what are you doing, sister? Or why are you even here, sister?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I guess early on that when you do put on this hijab, you are representing the religion. You do have to hold yourself to a certain caliber. So in that sense, it's definitely beneficial. I know when I go outside, I do have to hold myself, especially when like we said, when we work outside the home, when you're going places where you might be the minority, you are representative of that. So it's definitely has helped me. I had to catch myself in certain when I was, I guess, first started off or first started wearing a hijab, and it kind of was like this tug and pull, and it kind of goes back to Zainab's comment when she was saying some sisters, even though they're wearing hijab, they don't have haya. And I definitely wouldn't say I went down that route or to that extreme, but there was this inkling of, well, I'm dressed like this, but I'm still cool. Y'all don't have to be so guarded when I enter, the work office or into the cafeteria. Oh no, I know that song too. So trying to kind of, it's a fine line, and I've definitely refined that as I got older. But initially, it was that tug and pull of, yes, I'm dressed like this, but I can still be down or whatever. And
Mhm.
that can open the door for a lot of stuff. And I think with those sisters who sometimes don't have any haya, they're trying to subliminally prove that to everyone. I'm dressed like this, but I can still get down. So it's like, yeah.
So the place that I want to piggyback on that, you're so right, because you're right, it is a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've even had people, again, non-Muslims, say, "Oh, before a while, Khalila, before I got to know you, I just assumed that you were, like you wouldn't talk to me, or you were really,
Uh-huh.
you're really standoffish. But now that I'm getting to know you, oh my God, you're really cool and you're really funny and you're really nice."
Mm-hmm.
Again, they just
Mm-hmm.
see how we're dressed, and a lot of times they assume certain things. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, when you get to know you and talk to you, like, okay, oh wow, you're not. I thought you're gonna be really like strict, and you wouldn't talk to me because
Mm-hmm.
how you look and how you dress. I just figured, and so it is kind of a fine line, and kind of like
Yeah.
how we carry ourselves and how we interact with
Mm-hmm.
people, not being so stand up and strict that we kind of put this out there, like, don't even come to me with anything. I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
be in my my island, my box here, and everybody just stay away. Again,
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be too, hey everybody, like you said, I'm gonna be cool too. I'm just gonna sit there. What you playing that music? Oh, I could get down that. So you have that too. So you have to
Well,
be
I can give an example of that at one of my previous jobs. That's what it was. At first, they were so guarded, and then they started loosening up, and then they started asking me. I'm like, do I look like I'm going to any after hours spot with y'all? They would start asking me, you sure you don't want to come with us? Come on, girl, have a good time. No, we can have a good time cracking jokes about these kids, but
exactly.
I'm not
I'm
going to
not
no
going to the
after
barbecue.
hours drinking
Exactly.
spot with you.
So,
So
I
yeah.
what you're touching on, both of you, is really important, because I think that there is a balance between the two. Like, we're not talking about not necessarily being approachable, right? Like, we
Mhm.
can still be approachable, of course, and we should still be approachable, and we should create a space where people can come to us if they have questions or comments, or they're just curious about Islam. But at the same time, there should also be a barrier to it. And I think that one of the benefits of hijab, going back to the question, is that it creates a physical barrier, a literal barrier, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are certain things that Allah does that are spiritual, which are, of course, a part of our hijab is spiritual, but then there are also physical barriers, right? And hijab, the clothing, is a physical barrier. Like, wait, I'm not going to go past a certain point,
Mhm.
right? I am trying to communicate something to you without speaking, right? And this is what hijab does. And this is from the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He legislates something that we may not necessarily understand, but the benefit of it, I mean, people have dissected the benefits of modesty and proper hijab forever. And I'm not talking about what we call proper hijab, but what Allah and his messenger have legislated as proper hijab. And I think that that's really important too. Understanding as women, what is proper hijab, right? Can I go out because I have on an abaya? Can my abaya be tight, right? Can my hijab be above my breast? Is that okay? Can my hijab be tucked in my shirt? You know, what do I have to dress? Is it okay for me to wear pants outside? Is it okay to wear a skirt and top outside? Is this what Allah and his messenger have legislated? And it's an uncomfortable conversation for many, because many of us are still fighting that struggle of submitting to Allah and learning what Allah and his messenger have said about hijab. And it's a struggle. I'll tell you, and we've talked about it on numerous occasions, my challenges with hijab. I was born and raised Muslim. I did not always practice. And I did not always, cover. I did not always wear hijab. And as I started to come back to the practice of Islam, I struggled with it. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, who are we covering for? And if we're covering for the sake of Allah, then it's important for us to know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do it. Right? It's not enough to say, oh, I love Allah, I love Allah, I love Allah, right? Just like it's not enough for our husbands to say, I love you, I love you, I love you. Now I need you to show me. Right?
Great analogy, yeah.
Yep.
You have to show up. You have to show it. And it's a jihad. And recognizing it's a jihad.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do it for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us and he makes it easier for us.
Mm-hmm.
He makes it easier for us. So I think that as women, having knowledge, the importance of having knowledge about what hijab is versus what hijab is not. Because many of us have something on our head, but we are not covered properly. And that's a starting point. And this is not to discourage anybody. And I want to be really, really clear on that. That is a starting point. But we can't be at start for 50 years.
Exactly.
We have to begin to move forward. Right? Our hijab should be progressing as we are continuing to progress in our knowledge and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a safeguard for us. It's not to say that if a sister is walking down the street and she's not covered properly, that she deserves to be harassed, she deserves to be mistreated, and she deserves to be assaulted. Absolutely not. But there is a secret, and there's a secret blessing and protection in covering properly. And I think for us as women, not even making this about men, I think for us as women, we have to get honest with ourselves. We have to get honest with Allah, and we have to begin to fight ourselves, because we make every excuse in the world. Oh, the way that sister talked about hijab, she was so harsh and da-da-da-da-da. Okay. But now you go and learn what hijab is, right? We can't just stay there. And I feel like as Muslims, that's what we do. Like, we make other people the scapegoat for our lack of willingness to be more obedient to Allah. And that's a conversation in and of itself, right? Like, again, I think hijab is a conversation that I think for us, as you know, a Sunday morning coffee, I think it's long overdue. But I think at the core of it is, again, that heart connection that we always talk about, that heart being connected to Allah. So yeah, sorry guys, I just wanted to mention it. So kind of switching gears a little bit. There's a Muslim brother, right? And he cute. And I like him. What are the next steps, or what are the next series of steps that we should take if we are in fact interested in a Muslim brother? There we go.
Your wali. You have to go to your wali.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that look like?
Wakil.
Elaborate a little bit. What does that look like?
Well, again, if you are serious about this brother and would like to know more, and vice versa, he's interested in you, and then yeah, your next step would definitely be to talk to your wali, whoever that is, whether it's your father or your brother or uncle in your family, your male representative, and your wakil. If you do not have wali, particularly if you are a revert sister, you may have wakil. Let them know of your intentions and let them know that there is a brother that you are interested in for the purpose of marriage, because it's always for the purpose of marriage. And let them kind of take it from there. Not to say that you are going to completely step out of the situation, but again, you fill them in on what you do know. And the next steps would be to give him his contact. If you have his contact information, the contact information of the brother, you would give it to your wali or wakil, or you would find a way to get that information to your wali or wakil, perhaps, and then let them kind of step in and start asking the brother questions and things of that nature, finding out information about him to see if this would be something that could possibly go into marriage.
Right. I would agree. Quasia?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think sometimes there is challenges to that, even though I definitely agree. Like, so for, example, because I'm posed this question, so when you're working outside the home or kind of just playing, I guess, devil's advocate here, like the part, like, he's interested, but that's just it. Like, there's so many series of things. How would you even know that he is interested, or are we just, we see a Muslim man, okay, let me call my wali up, like boom, 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 boom. He's like, okay, I just smiled at you, sister. So like our radars to,
he loves me.
All right. That's because
be careful with that, though.
It's that aspect too. Oh,
That's
God
true.
forbid, there's two Muslims in the same space. Y'all must be in love with each other. Like
done.
it's just so.
Right. Oh, girl.
Two Muslims at the same job.
Investigative work will have to come into play. You have to find out if, find out if he's available for marriage. Now we know men have more than one wife, but that can get complicated. That's a whole other conversation.
It's another topic for another day.
I'm not gonna have that happen. Like, you see your brother wherever, and then come to find out here I got a wife. Okay, so so you might want to find that out. Again, that's when the investigative work comes into play. Kind of ask maybe someone who may know him. Kind of, this brother who may know somebody. Maybe you got a mutual friend somewhere, and then kind of do a little background digging information to find out if he's available for marriage first and foremost. If he's even looking or interested in the marriage, even if he's, even if like, I don't mind him having a wife, but is he looking for another wife? Whatever.
Exactly.
Is he looking for marriage? Is he interested in getting married? So that's when you're kind of you have to be kind of a PI in a way. When you are.
The reason I throw that the reason I throw that question out there is because honestly, what a lot of times what you see would happen is that there's a lot of, and not saying it's anything behind closed doors or anything, but there's a lot of back and forth. Well, I kind of want to get to know this person, but we don't. We are very emotional creatures, and typically what would happen, even when both parties have the best of intentions, start to become emotionally invested. We all know how it feels to be women. He has one or two conversations with you. You're envisioning your wedding day.
Wedding already,
sometimes,
right?
It's like yeah. So just a second. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, but pretty much that's pretty much what I'm saying. Give me 1 second.
No, it's funny because I would agree with that, but I would say too, I think it depends on the scenario and the circumstances too. Yeah. So if you are a sister who is actively looking for a husband and you're on like a matrimonial site, as many people are, as many of us are.
Oh, yes.
Especially with COVID, people aren't going out like that, but people still have a desire to be married, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Then there should be some safeguards in place, right? So starting with your wali or your wakil being involved, right? Yes. But just a bullet point or a side note, I think that it's important to mention that many of our walis and our wakils are failing us. And that's a conversation that has to be had. Right? Many of our walis or our wakils, not only are they failing us, but they become roadblocks to us actually something that, depending on the person, is a wajib for them, right? So if you're not doing your job as a wali and a wakil, then I am kind of forced into the responsibility of becoming my own wakil, of becoming my own wali, and kind of doing the work myself. And this is not the way that it's supposed to be set up, but I know many sisters who have had to take on the role of wali and wakil because either their fathers, the imam, the brother that was assigned, depending on, revert, convert, born, whatever, failed them. They're not doing their job. Yeah. And I think that that's important too. So going back to the point that I was making, depending on the platform, right? So if you're on a matrimonial site, then for sure you should be, your wali and your wakil should be involved from the get-go, right? It should be a joint account where he has access and he can go in and see the messages that you and this person are exchanging. In a perfect world, he should be the one actually doing it for you, but that's not always realistic. And if you're a person who has been previously married, we know that the woman who has been previously married has more knowledge and insight into what she likes because she's had what she liked before. So she has more insight into who she is versus the virgin girl. I'm talking about just from an Islamic perspective, right? That doesn't mean that she loses all of her haya and she can just go and be willy-nilly. No, of course not. But so I would say that first and foremost on the matrimonial website, if you happen to see a brother in a masjid that you find attractive, let your wali know.
Yeah.
Or if there's sisters in that community that you trust, say, hey, I saw this brother downstairs or outside in the masjid. I was wondering, and describe him. I was wondering if you know him. Do you know if he's married? Do you have his contact information? Or can you give him my wali's contact information? Because I may be interested in him, right? Preserving your honor. I am highly, highly against women approaching men for many, many reasons. It's not to say that it's haram.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not haram. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that the way that we preserve our honor, right? Because what we're talking about is that we have our representative come to them, right? Easier to accept rejection if I'm not directly involved, right? So much easier, right? And then if he's not interested, then he's not forced to say, oh yeah, I am interested, and then go a couple weeks later, because that happens too.
Yep.
That happens a lot. As a matter of fact, Khalil did a whole series. These things happen a lot. So again, it's case by case scenario. But if you're in a setting where you actually have interaction with this person, then I would not interaction with this person, but I would definitely, of course, first and foremost, have the wali involved. If there are sisters that know him or their husbands may know him, and there's a way for you to get your wali or your wakil's contact information to him, then go about it that way, right? But I just personally, based on what I've seen and even based on what I've experienced too, in full transparency, you don't want to put yourself out there like that because it opens the door to a lot. And, people will try to, you can find yourself in a very compromising situation when you begin to take the lead on certain things as a woman, right? Because then a brother can say that what he said, what he promised, what he did, what he actually did, he didn't do. Why? Because it was just you and him, right? The promises that he made, it was just you and him. And again, this goes back, and this is trial and error, no shame, no judgment, but we have to be accountable.
Yep.
Right? This goes back to us preserving our honor. So if a brother is serious about you, he commits. There is no guessing game.
Exactly.
There's no, I really like you, but girl, I'm just trying to, Yeah. That's not it. Men that are serious commit. Period. Exactly. If he's serious, he's committed. If he's not serious, he's not
it's very simple.
It is really that simple. We're not looking for signs. We're not looking for is he called me, he texted me. And we've all been there, right? We've all played that game. Oh, he texted me this with a heart emoji. Girl.
Yeah.
Heart emoji. It's not a proposal marriage.
Exactly. It's not a proposal.
Like, we lose our intellect because we desire to be with someone and we compromise our honor in that process. So I think it's so important. Keep those safeguards in place.
Yes.
If we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all and we believe that what he has given us is perfect, then trust what he gave us. This is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Trust it.
Yeah.
Because in not trusting it, you may remove the barakah from something that could be really beautiful.
SubhanAllah.
So going on to I feel like we touched on this. This is a funny question. So we hear the term work hubby and work wife. You know, what are you guys' thoughts on this? I definitely have very few thoughts on this, but
work hubby.
I don't really have thoughts on it because I've never gone through that. Like I
haven't either. I mean, I work with 99% women, so
yeah, so
I really wasn't opportunity for a work husband
like that either. Like my work husband, what?
Nah,
no.
Yeah, no. I haven't. Definitely haven't gone through that personally, but I think it's important that these are some of the, like I said, the tricks of the shaitan and any avenue he can get. And these are a lot of terms that I hear Muslims and non-Muslims alike use. They use it very, oh, that's my work hubby, you know, or that's my work, whatever. And to me, obviously that's, you know, said as jokes, said as humor. But to me, let's just shut that down before it gets started. So I brought that, you know, we wanted to bring that up because this is one of the ways, you know, we're human at the end of the day. Like I said, you know, we wear Islamic garb, we know hijab. At the end of the day, we're human. And even that subtle thing, well, that's my work hubby. That means that is your outlet for something. That means that you're looking forward to seeing this person when you go to, what is that? What's attached to that? You know, so I would say definitely in agreement with everybody, you know, shut it down, but definitely want to shed light on some of these ways that we kind of do lose our honor. Sometimes they're very subtle, you know, so yeah.
And you know what, and I think, thank you, Kwesi, for clarifying the question, because I think that sometimes just because we have not dealt with it, we don't necessarily empathize with it too. But there are some sisters who may deal with this. There are some brothers who may deal with this too. And they may be in compromising situations and they may not know how to back out of it, right? They may find themselves in tricky situations, right? Like you said, we're all human. We're Muslim. We have guidance. We have perfect guidance. But truth be told, we don't always adhere to it.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we back out of these difficult situations when we find ourselves in them? And I think that, Kwesi, thank you for clarifying that, because I think that is important too. So now I actually do have something to say on this. If you find yourself in a situation where you have someone, like Kwesi said, and I think that that's such an important point too. Sorry, I'm going to double back for a second. But you're getting something out of that relationship. And you have to be honest about that.
Yeah.
Right. It is fulfilling a need or a desire that you have. Right. And those type of needs and desires should only be filled in a way that is permissible. Right.
Yeah.
And if it is a relationship with the opposite sex, that should only be fulfilled in marriage. Now, I want to say that just thinking my psychology brain is on, we get fulfillment in a lot of different ways as human beings, right? We post on social media, we get likes, someone agrees with our point of view, something that we say resonates with them. We give a big announcement on social media and people are happy for us. That pleases us too, right? But I think that sometimes we go too far, even on social media. And I think that can be like really dangerous too. And I'm making the connection to social media and then a work husband for a reason. I think that sometimes we're seeking validation from Allah's creation. We should be seeking that validation from Allah, right? Like it becomes an extension of, I need to be validated. I need my worth to be acknowledged. But we're seeking it in the wrong way. And sometimes what happens is, especially again, going back to that self-awareness, when we're not aware that that's a trigger for us, when we're not aware that validating, that we need that constant validation, and that means we're not able to work on it and work through it. So first being honest about, you know what, I get something from this work husband, work wife relationship, right? And it may be validation that I'm not getting at home if I'm in a marriage, right? And if I'm not in a marriage, then I may need to really put myself in a situation where I can, inshallah, get married, because I'm putting myself in a compromising situation, and eventually that is going to lead to a greater compromising situation. And recognizing that as well, because what ends up happening is that
Okay.
Shaitan doesn't stop. What he does is he continues. He continues, like, little by little by little by little. He continues until he opens the door, and then all of a sudden, I'm in this compromising situation. So our intention may have started out pure, but then what ends up happening is that we've left the crack and Shaitan busted wide open. Right? And that can apply to so many scenarios in our lives. You know, I always tell people, especially the clients that I work with, take a social media break. Don't post on social media for a week. And I want you to write down, when you have an urge to post something, why you feel that way. Right? Write down, why do you, because, you know, like, when you stop something, you may have the urge to do it again. What is it that you're feeling in that moment? And the reason I want you to acknowledge it is because when you acknowledge your emotions around an action, you're able to recognize why you do something. Right? Like, oh, this is important to, I think such and such, but really, I got to share that. Start paying attention to it. Start being aware of it. So, yeah, I think that was, guys, any comments on that?
I agree. I definitely agree when we talked about you're getting something out of it, and we have to be honest with ourselves. And I guess this goes back to when we were talking earlier, just because we're Muslim, or astaghfirullah, we are Muslims, but we are also humans, and we have human needs, and we have, human attractions, and so on and so forth. So I just think, just to be aware of that so we can safeguard ourselves, because a lot of times what happens is we almost want to put ourselves as if we're on angelic status,
right,
and immune to all these things that more worldly people have to deal with,
right,
and come back down to earth.
World. We're these alien beings who are just visiting.
Exactly.
These are strange human folk.
So I definitely agree. There's a reason you're doing it. It's a very human need that you have that's not getting addressed. And what are some other ways that you can have that need be addressed? Even within a marriage, maybe you're not feeling validated, so on and so forth. Yeah.
But yeah, would you say that having grace, even in acknowledging that, is important as well, and not beating yourself up for having that need?
Oh yeah. I think, well, just to go back to that, we're humans. So even feeling guilty maybe for having that, like I said, if we're going to go back to the work hubby or work wife, well, I'm happily married with 3 kids. Why am I looking forward to seeing this man at work every day?
Right.
Well, it might be the spontaneity. Maybe it's the change, but you have to acknowledge that. And then now what can you do with that? You go back home. Right. So definitely cutting yourself some slack, and just cutting yourself some slack. We're all human,
All right, so I think we'll get into the 7 rules, and then I think we'll do our quote of the day, and then we'll take some questions, and we'll wrap up, inshallah. So we talked about the 7 rules without talking about the 7 rules, and I always love conversations where we implant things like Jedi mind tricks. So, first rule, right? No wali, no wakil, no deal. No wali, no wakil, no deal. Period. Number 2, you will never have to chase a man who's serious. You will never have to chase a man who is serious. Men who are serious commit. Period. Period. Full stop. Number 3, uphold the standards set by Allah. They're there for your protection. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves us more than we love ourselves. and he has set the boundaries for us out of extreme love and for our protection. Number 4, intuition is a gift from Allah. Don't ignore it. And we talked about a lot of intuition, whether we're giving da'wah, whether it's a brother, whether it's our hijab. We know these things intrinsically. Don't ignore it. Number 5, and I think that this should probably be one of the top 3, never make a decision from a place of loneliness. Never make a decision from a place of loneliness. Be still. Be still. If loneliness is your driving force, then you will find yourself in compromising situations. I promise you. I bear witness to you that you can find yourself in compromising situations. Number 6.
And you'll still end up lonely. You might still end up lonely when it's all said and done.
Tell them. Yeah. Tell them.
All that drama and still end up lonely.
Right, still alone.
Please tell them. Say a little louder for the people in the back.
Exactly.
Girl. And you will still end up lonely.
You're going to strangle somebody. You know?
You will still end up lonely. Number 6 is hijab. Number 6 is hijab. And we are talking about our physical hijab and our spiritual hijab. Observing both is extremely important. And the last one, number 7, is our boundaries. Your boundaries are for your protection. They are not to make the other person comfortable. They are to protect and make and keep you safe. Do not compromise on them. And when your boundaries are crossed, there has to be clear consequences. Clear consequences. So I think this is a good place to stop. Quasia, take it away with the quote of the day.
Ooh, give me 1 second. Sorry. I don't know what. 1 second, guys. You know, Zainab, so I did want to say I really like those. I'm wondering, I think our viewers, maybe they can let us know in the comments if they would like a copy of that. Yes. I think that would be amazing because those 7 almost as a reference. Okay, the quote of the day. Others will love and honor us when we love and honor ourselves. SubhanAllah. Yeah. So definitely. Pretty much what I get from that is what we're seeking. We have to have it inside first. You know, someone can pick up on loneliness and insecurity, and they can pick up on it from a mile away, unfortunately. You know, they really can. And that's a whole nother topic. There's a profile of men and women who actually might even seek that out, you know, for whatever reason. So definitely a very timely quote.
Yes. Yes. All right. I think this is a good place for us to jump right into our questions. We do have a few actually today. All right. So, okay. So people actually did mention that they were watching. Some were watching on YouTube. Some were watching on Facebook. Very nice.
Hey.
Right. So Bilqis, shout out to Bilqis. She said, great point, Zainab. We have a responsibility in our role as a fitna for men. And that's why our hijab is so important. Hijab linguistically means a barrier. So if we perfect our barrier, then we played our role in protecting ourselves and our brothers from fitna. Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent point. Barakallahu feek, Bilqis. Susu Banks, shout out to Sultana. She said, exactly. I'm the same way. I'm like a magnet to everyone, Muslim and non-Muslim. And I'm naturally extra friendly, girl. So I have to hold back. I have to hold myself back from being too talkative or too relaxed, especially around non-Muslim men. I work with them all day. Absolutely. Good point. Bilqis said, I used to answer general questions. I'm assuming she's referring to giving da'wah to non-Muslim men. I used to answer general questions as well, because I know that they most likely have wrong information. So I used to try to give the most accurate information to the best of my knowledge. Most common question was, why are you wearing that? And why can only why can only men marry more than one woman? Yeah, that's a
It's
question.
a popular question.
Sister Malika. Hey, Malika. She said, good point, sisters, Khalila, Kwesi, and Zainab. I'll keep those points in mind because I usually shut down in a nice way immediately, I'm assuming. Basically answer the question and then direct them to a masjid or to some brothers that can better help them. Because I feel men can understand men better, just like women can understand women. True. Good point. Good point. Malika also mentioned, subhanAllah, yes, shaitan is always busy. Remember, shaitan entered Prophet Adam and went through, this is such a good point, went through the whole body to know the ins and outs of the human being. Absolutely. This is so, barakallahu fik, this should be written in gold. Oh, so Bilqis also commented that hijab topic is beyond need, inshallah. Yes, it is. And I think it's long overdue for us. And I think we need to just have a conversation around that. So Brother Farouk says, question, for the brothers, women also ask about Islam. How confident do you feel the average Muslimah can teach a woman who has been redirected from Muslim men to teach her Islam? The premise of my question comes from many times brothers have had to teach non-Muslim women about Islam. True. Go ahead.
I can comment a little bit on this question. Well, I can't really answer it, but I do think this is an issue. And what men have said, Muslim men have said, that sometimes when non-Muslim women enter these Muslim spaces or they try to encourage them to be around Muslim women, the Muslim women are very dismissive of them. And this is a whole nother topic. Sometimes they can be dismissive. Sometimes they become catty. The first thing they mention to them is all the you can'ts and you don'ts. You know, so the sister is coming in, she's learning about Islam, she may be a new convert, she's definitely not dressed 100% Islamically. And the first thing you're telling her about is her neck or her nails or her this or her that. And that's a lot of times why they feel more comfortable going to men. Because the woman, a lot of times, they shut them down immediately. And this is something that as a Muslim community, Muslim sisters, we really need to do better on. This is something I've heard time and time again. I brought, my whatever to my cousin, to a group of sisters. I brought her to the masjid. It was an iftar. And they shut her down.
You know what, though, I have a little bit of a different take on this because I feel like if a brother is directing a woman to a Muslim sister, as I think personally he should, then he has the responsibility and the onus is on him to make sure that he is directing her to the appropriate Muslim sister.
Right? I agree. I agree.
Like, you can't, yes, Muslim women have jealousy and all these issues. This is true. And oftentimes we don't know our religion, which is really what you're speaking to, Ifama. That's really the bottom line. Like, we don't know our religion. We don't know where to start. And we often don't know how to give dawah. Yeah. We don't know how to call someone to Allah. But if the brother says, I'm going to direct you to a sister that can assist you, then he should direct her to a sister that can assist him. Now
that's twofold. And the reason I want to say that is that women know women, men know men to a certain extent. So he might be, and not giving him no shade because he needs to do his research. But I do feel that in certain circles, when it comes to certain things, cattiness, subliminal messages, a man just doesn't always even get. You know what I mean? Like I've been, even if
Ifama, you don't think that's giving him a pass?
I don't think it's giving him a pass. So I'll give an example, even in situations like if we talk about even polygamy, for example, and he'll say, well, the woman, what's the issue? You guys look like y'all having a good time. You're having this, you're having that. But between them, there's something that he can't even see. So I'm saying it could be both. It could be he needs to look for a correct person who meets certain standards. He can do all that. And there can still be tension between these two women.
Okay, I guess two things can be true. Okay, no, I get that.
And that can be very off-putting for a woman because when you're a non-Muslim woman, you, just like a non-Muslim man, you have this idealistic view of how these people will embrace you sometimes.
Okay.
So once again, not throwing, putting, taking responsibility off of anybody, but just as collectively as women, sometimes we have to know the energy we give off. So kind of even going back to stuff we talked about before, you know, femininity,
Right.
all this stuff. Sometimes we're not even aware of how we come off to other people, men, and the focus was on men, but in this respect, it could also be how we come off to non-Muslim women, I guess I would say.
And now, you know, it's funny because I actually have a story around it. There was a non-Muslim sister. Well, she's Muslim now. She was interested in Islam. And the person that was talking to her happened to be present. And there was a sister who was talking to her, and she started with hijab. And I could see that this woman who was not yet Muslim, she was clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. She had no context for hijab.
Yeah.
She didn't even know Allah yet. She was learning about Allah. And I was like, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I can't just sit here, because this woman could be who Shaitan uses to deter this sister from accepting Islam. And I was like, you know,
can I say
her. So what I ended up doing, I was like, you know, sis, you know, just with all due respect, you know, I was like, you know, and I didn't disparage the sister or anything like that, but I did chime in and I was like, you know, sister, what we do is we focus, we start with Tawheed. We start with who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and why he deserves to be worshipped, why we are commanded to worship him. And I was like, and once you understand that, everything else will come into place. And it won't come into place overnight. I was like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is grace. He gives us grace. So all of the other things that are a part of Islam, the Shari'i ruling, all of that, you have to learn that. Of course you do, but that's not what you start with. And I said it to the sister in such a way, like, you know, like I'm thinking to myself, like, you're about to turn this sister off.
Yeah.
She's not obligated to wear hijab. Like, as soon as she, of course, the obligations are upon her, but she has to learn.
Yeah.
But we think that the harder we are, and we talked about this once before, the harsher we are, the more stern we are, the more difficult the task is, the more righteous we are, right?
Yeah.
And that's a part of our dogma too, that we give off to those who are interested in Islam. So I just wanted to mention that too. Go ahead, Ifama, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to even make this short, but I will. There was, and I won't say the masjid, but this is common in a few masjids. I remember my grandmother, just to tell you how long this is going on, and she said that, you know, she was part of a community that anytime when a Muslim sister or a new convert or someone entered, the women's almost like the equivalent of clutching your pearls, because it was kind of like, who's this new sister? She's attractive. Is my husband going to be attracted to her? So we have to really be, like, when we was going back to, like, we're Muslim, but we're still women. We're Muslim, but we're still men. I think sometimes, alhamdulillah, hopefully not with any of us, but for an insecure person, on the surface, they have the knowledge, but these type of things still seep through. So you can be any mom's wife. Like I said, not throwing it. You could be any mom's wife, and he gives his sister to you to well, if that sister's attractive, okay, let's be human for a moment. It might affect how you relate to her, but he's a man. He's just thinking she has the knowledge, who's more befitting than my wife to teach this woman about Islam. And she might be thinking, okay, logically that makes sense, but as a woman, I have my guard up. You know, so it's so complicated, I guess, but sorry, I just wanted to, I think all these comments are relevant to Farouk's question.
Yes, absolutely. Khalil, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree with what both of you said. Yeah, I think we do have to be mindful of that. And I think a number of women do have our guard a lot when it comes to giving other women, non-Muslim women, dawah, you know, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll be mindful of that, you know.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Sorry. Commented on, she said, Khalil, I appreciate your honesty. Women can be attracted to men as well. Go figure is what she meant, because she clarified what she meant in the other comment. Naomi said, yes, Muslims are normal. I just want to read, see if there's any more questions. Naomi said, the being honest with yourself is always a struggle. She was like, I totally agree. Absolutely. And it is. And I think that Some of us may have mastered honesty on one level, and then we struggle with it on another. Constantly growing. I promise you. Like, you might have hijab down pat, right? But your life. So Tahira, welcome, Sister Tahira. She says, "MashaAllah, beautifully said. Alhamdulillah, barakallahu feek." Bilqis, referring to the wali and the wakil, she was like, and they're uneducated on what their job is. Absolutely.
That's so true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many times our walis and our wakils are uneducated. Next comment is from Sister Najma Medina. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, this is so beneficial for me personally because it hit on various realistic scenarios I've experienced. And point number 5 should definitely be in the high number 3. Jazakallahu khairan. Bilqis says, my question is, where do we learn these things? Muslims need a how to give dawah course, because not remembering that the person must learn who Allah is before you give them the rules and regulations. Allah sent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for many years before any rulings came down. You know, this is such a good point. And I think it goes back to our leadership, right? And the importance of them giving dawah, calling people to Allah and teaching their communities how to call to Allah properly. I think that a lot of this falls on the shoulders of our leaders and those with knowledge, right? Those with knowledge have a responsibility and an obligation to teach. And many times they're not teaching people, they're teaching people what they need to do to give the shahada, but they're not teaching hikmah. They're not teaching people wisdom, right? You know, how do you do this in this scenario? How do you do this in that scenario? If a person comes at you like this, you know, teaching people, I mean, discernment is a skill. You know, hikmah is a skill. And truth be told, on some level, it can be taught. Like, it can be taught. Some people have it intrinsically, others are taught. And our leadership has to begin to teach that. And if they themselves don't possess that, then, you know, that's problematic too, right? Because oftentimes in many communities, what you see is that they have knowledge of the ahkam, they have knowledge of the rulings, they have knowledge of the sharia, they have knowledge of the deen, but making it practical, which is why we did the show and we gave real life scenarios. People, a lot of our leadership, they're not doing that, right? Like when I'm at work, newsflash, we work, right? Like we're going to be in these scenarios. How do I navigate it? And honestly, this is the whole premise of I can't even say the acronym, of MWI, right? Like giving these real life scenarios so that you can live Islam wholeheartedly, not so that you can stay in a bubble and never interact with disbelievers or non-Muslim, so that you can live it in every scenario of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a really good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a solution. Or an answer to it other than our leadership. People that are put in leadership positions have to do better. And we as community members have to demand that they do better.
Yes.
So anybody else want to comment on this? Because this was the last question. Yeah.
Well, I have seen a couple of classes though here. I don't remember which organizations were hosting them. But I know in the past I have seen here locally, at least in New York, classes where they were specifically about dawah, how to give dawah and things of that nature. I wish I could remember which masters and which organization were hosting them, but I have seen in the past where they were giving classes or whatever, or like a weekend course or about giving dawah. I will keep an eye out for any ones in the future now that a lot of the COVID restrictions are being lifted. Maybe some of them will go back to that and have some more classes for the community on how to give dawah. But I know I have seen some, again, at least speaking for this area, in the past. So maybe kind of check with your local organizations and masajid and where you live and see if they're offering any kind of classes or courses on how to give dawah. Because I know, if speaking here, I've seen it in the past. This is all pre-COVID, of course. But I've seen them pop up, different classes and things of that nature, workshops about giving dawah. So I'll just keep an eye out for that.
You know what popped into my mind as we were talking was like I would love for this to be like, you know, for those of us who went or have kids go to Islamic schools, like this can be, especially if a child is a senior in high school, to me, this should be like a course that every senior has to
That's a
take
good idea.
in high school before you leave your Islamic school and go off to college or go off into the world. It's like Dawah 101. Like honestly, like
That's
my
a
brain
great
was
idea.
turning. And that's honestly, if I just look back, that's where a lot of the tension rises for a lot of us.
True.
I know we're out of time, but if you were in these Islamic schools, you were in these Islamic environments, and now you're thrust into
Yep.
supposedly real world, and people were asking you all these questions, men and women,
Mhm.
attractive men and women, and you're just like, I don't know how to navigate this. So I would love for
That's an excellent idea.
Yep, that
it
is
to be a course that every senior in high school would at least take, you know?
That's an excellent idea because a lot of our youth are going out there ill prepared.
Yep.
Very
And this is how they
ill-prepared.
fall into the traps of Shaitan. That's how a lot of them lose a lot of them.
Shaitan's waiting.
Wind up falling into things like alcohol, drugs, and things of that nature.
They don't know how to even navigate the questions or how to, and then they might
don't know
even
how to answer
start
questions.
questioning
Come to us.
themselves. Yep.
I don't know.
I don't know.
My
I
mom told me
guess
I could do that.
it's
You know?
No, I think that that's an excellent point, and I think maybe that's something that we can look into maybe putting together at some point down the line. Really, really important thing, and I think it also speaks to the extremes, right? Like our kids are super hyper protected, and they're never taught to be resilient in uncomfortable environments, and that leads to the other extreme, right? Where when they do get out into these environments, they don't know how to navigate them. They don't know how to handle themselves, and they go buck wild.
Yep.
Go buck wild. They were never taught resilience. They were never taught resilience. They never saw it in practice. All we did was protect, and we should protect. But we also have to couple that with teaching them that you don't live in a box or a bubble. So yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. I think that we definitely, as a community, have a lot more work to do. Join us for part 2 of this conversation next week.
Yes.
Tackling the brothers.
So add your husband, share it with your husband, your brothers, your sons. Share it with the men in your community. We need the other half of this discussion. You know, I think a lot of times in a lot of spaces, it's, you know, it's only female dominant. Please bring your brothers, your husbands, you know, your uncles to next week's episode, inshallah. Please share. Please share.
We have one last comment, Kwesi and Khalil. Malika wrote to Sister Nejma. She said, "You said it. Knowing who Allah is first, and what is incumbent upon us first helps. And if we witness someone coming into Islam and they're drilled about hijab first, then we can pull them to the side and just clarify exactly what is important, not to put anybody on the spot and to cover up the faults of our sisters. Absolutely, but also not just pulling them to the side because perhaps our sisters don't know, right? So making it a conversation because they need to be educated too, right? Like, you know, you can cover your faults by still addressing the issue. Like, just do it with hikmah. Right. So I definitely agree with it, but don't leave your sister who is giving this information in ignorance too, because she may do that to someone else. And that person may choose to not accept Islam. So yeah, I think that we're good here. Thank you, ladies. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this.
I did.
It was good to be back. All right. So inshallah, next week, Naima will return. Yay. And inshallah, we will see you all next week. Anything of good that was said, all praise and thanks is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Any mistakes that we made are from ourselves and the shaitan, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pardon and forgive us and protect us from both. Ameen.
Ameen.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
This is what you strive for, what you sent for. I wanna go where no eyes never seen, no ears never heard, no mind can imagine. Paradise, no more tests, no more tears, no more trials. Paradise, just